Hi there, Libra. Welcome to your end of May 2025 General Tarot Update. It's Raina here. Okay. Let's, I'm just going to pick them off the top because I've shuffled. Wow. Pretty intense, huh? Okay. The heart of the matter is the death card. And actually, I always like to draw astrological connections to my tarot readings. And back in late March, you may be familiar with a solar eclipse that happened in your opposite sign of Aries, which is the opposite house for you is the house that you rule, the seventh house in astrology. And this could have been a new chapter in your life that could have involved like being single for the first time in 10 years or 20 years. There, whether it's a solar eclipse or a lunar eclipse, an eclipse can mean that something is shifting. And, death is the not just like physical death, but it can be some kind of transformation. It can be an irrevocable ending to something. So we have to look at the death card in a totally different way. And I actually have a deck that says transformation after the word death, or rebirth. I'm sorry, rebirth. And so that's because we have this negative connotation about what the word death means. So, and those two ideas go side by side. You don't just have something die. Something is going to come up in its place. Maybe not in the same form, obviously. So it is a change. Could be like a very radical change, but it still is something that is happening for your highest good, whether you can understand it or not. I do have some work going on next door, so I'm sorry if you can hear that. I have the windows closed, even though it's a really nice day, because there's some hammering going on, so hopefully it's not too loud. In the past position, we have the Three of Swords, and this is a card sometimes of third-party situations, or we could call it love triangles where there are three parties involved. Maybe maybe that was the final straw of a relationship, finding out that your partner cheated. And sometimes when you're in a three-party situation, you're not the one initiating it. You find yourself dragged into that situation. The death card would suggest, okay, that's it. I can't ignore this any longer. And it just kind of like is the person, closing that chapter. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because sometimes it takes that push to be able to do it when you feel like you've been humiliated, or it just has gotten to the point that is of no return, that you say to yourself, okay, I have an insult level and I finally have found it. And that can lead to coming out the other end and being able to perhaps be in a situation where you are relieved even that this thing happened that seems so horrible in that during the ordeal. But after the smoke had cleared, you're like, wow, I would have never done this on my own, or at least at this time. And so thank God. The higher message, or What you can learn from the experience is represented by the Seven of Wands, which is a card of standing your ground. So another thing that the Death card and the Three of Swords could be about is work related. I mean, it doesn't have to be just in your love life or anything like that. So anything that you have that has ended for you or that is on its last legs, the Seven of Wands is about, how did you handle the situation? And perhaps you were dealing with kind of like fending off attacks. And rather than, kind of stand your ground, which would mean different things to different people, For some people, standing their ground means you don't feel like you have to explain yourself because that would be giving into somebody else's attempts at trying to make you feel that you're not allowed to feel your feelings, that you have to kind of explain yourself or something like that. But in other cases, it could be like really openly stating your rights in that situation. And maybe you were too eager to please, too eager to go along to get along. And so, like the Three of Swords could be also a disappointment, a feeling of rejection. So, in the workplace, the example I always give is, you didn't get the promotion and maybe you were even promised something like that and you didn't get it and you felt the sense of like, um, I'm not good enough. You told yourself a story that may not have even been true, but you felt like this was indicative of something. And that's not necessarily the case at all. But it's understandable when somebody feels that way based upon what has been done in their situation. But the Seven of Wands is more about like being proactive, not just being a doormat or not just, usually that desire for constant harmony is tied to a fear of rejection, a fear of disapproval. And sometimes, you know, you actually create more chaos when you try to avoid any disharmony than, if you just let the chips fall where they may, because you're trying to prevent something that needs to die, that needs to, um, or even like a grievance that needs to be aired. It's and then it's like kind of like things start to build up, and that could even be on your end too, where you feel resentful. You feel like somebody is taking advantage of you or disrespecting you, and things don't get better, but they really can't until you have the courage to be authentic and speak your truth when it is appropriate. The card that crosses you is the Ace of Wands, and this is a card of new beginnings. And because it's in the challenge position, it could be delayed or somehow thwarted. And I think that's because of the Death card. It's really speaking about, being able to tie up loose ends or to have that closure and to move on and have new beginnings. The Ace of Wands can be a new passion project, a new relationship with a fire sign, Aries, Leo, Sagittarius, or something that feels very, I love the Ace of Wands because it's really connected to something that you're initiating. There's like a strong initiatory energy to it. I don't know if it's connected to a specific fire sign. If I had to guess, I would say Aries, because Aces are beginnings and Aries is the first sign. but I don't know for sure. But it just says I really like that feeling of new beginnings, but it's also that feeling of passion, which I think is something that isn't really encouraged in our society these days, of really, knowing that something is right for you or some person is right for you because you feel like strongly passionate. I'm not talking about physical passion. I'm talking about there's like this sense that you're being ignited by something that is creating a lot of um, positive energy. As a matter of fact, it really does feel like this Aries. This is another card that I associate with Aries, and it's actually associated with Uranus, the planet Uranus, which is the ruler of Aquarius. And so this is the energy coming in, and this is the Fool card, and this is 0 point. So, and it, oh my gosh, when I said 0 point, it was 11:11 in the recording. So there you go. That might be your sign. But this is a card of absolutely new beginnings, and that the person is kind of like this free spirit, that they're not looking at where they're going, which kind of symbolizes, somebody who's very in the moment, very spontaneous, and is not like if they're traveling, they're just kind of wandering, but it's not aimless wandering. It's again with that sense of passion of life itself. Somebody could have an itinerary and they have everything like planned down to the last detail, but there's no passion to it. It's like they're just kind of going through the motions. They're being very anal, and they're, in other words, somebody who's very organized, but it's not really coming from a spirit of adventure. So there's like an adventurous spirit, because even the outcome card is Knight of Wands. That can be very adventurous. And actually, this card is connected to Sagittarius, but I connect it to Aries. It's really kind of like a wild kind of energy. So what I would see about this, for instance, is if you are, I get like this feeling of somebody who was in a long-term marriage and maybe had like multiple experiences of heartbreak within that, but there was something that pushed them over the edge where it was like, okay, stick a fork in it, it's done. And just by acknowledging that, all of these three bottom cards could be activated in the best possible way. But if you hang on to something that you know is already dead, that can delay your ability to start something new. So keep that in mind, Libra, as you go through these the remaining months of 2025 and see how that plays out for you, because that Aries energy, that was the last eclipse in the cycle of Aries and Libra. So you could call that the final what do you call it? The not that I was gonna say the final blow, but I mean the final hit to that area. And actually, from what I understand, in 2026 there's going to be an eclipse in Aquarius. So that will be your fifth house of romance. So if this has anything to do with like a committed partnership, you're going to have that dating and love area activated for you, within the year or so. Alrighty then, that's what I have for you. I hope that this resonated, and if you would like a private reading, be it the tarot or astrology or both, you can click on the link below. I do mostly astrological readings, but I do have like package deals that combines the tarot with astrology as well, or just astrology by itself, and I do single readings too. You can find out more information at the link below. Thanks for watching. Bye.